I'm sure Tesla would never do this, but one of the common problems we hear is related to dogs biting people. And that's something, of course, that we can't allow. In fact, you might not think of it, but a dog that bites a person has a fatal disease, in the sense that biting a person can result in losing your life. That's the case. If we have a dog that's vicious or that is a danger to people, sometimes we end up having to put them to sleep, and we don't want that. Now, interestingly, of course, biting, which sometimes is play, and sometimes is protection, and sometimes is aggression, biting is a normal behavior for a dog. It's one of these normal behaviors that we need to be able to control and prevent and allow to be appropriate, because we're not living in a dog den. No, we're living in a human house with a dog. And so training the dog that the people in his life are not the same as a bunch of dogs in a kennel or in a hovel, you might say, is an important thing. Number one thing that I usually recommend in the case of a dog that bites is, first of all, the owner needs to ensure that that is not something that's going to happen. And that might mean wearing a muzzle, putting a muzzle on your dog. It definitely will mean going to advanced training in order to prevent biting, because that's certainly one thing that will make people afraid of dogs. And I know of some people that have been bitten as a child and have fear of dogs their whole life long, just from one episode. So make sure then that if you do run into a problem with your dog, and that could be behavioral biting problems, that could be other behavioral problems, the important thing is to nip it in the bud, no pun intended. Nip that in the bud, because as soon as we start seeing behavior or other abnormalities that are out of sorts that we don't like, we need to get on top of that right away. It is a whole lot easier to deal with the emerging behavioral problem than it is to deal with it once it has proceeded on and on unchecked. And like I said, unchecked biting behaviors can result in the death of a dog. It's serious business. And that's even before we talk about the potential fear from people and injury. That's one thing we absolutely need to avoid. We don't want children to be bitten. We don't want people to be bitten. We like to ensure that we have a long, healthy relationship with our dogs. And our dogs are going to be dogs. We need to make sure that they behave the way that we would want them to for our own purposes as well as theirs.